I waited almost 60 days to make this video because you gotta chill and see all of the buffs that pop up in Otherworld Battle before you can really make a video talking about the best buffs. And there's actually a lot of buffs in Otherworld Battle that you can buy in the shop, and you actually have to buy 5 buffs every month if you want to maximize the rewards, because if you take a look at the battle pass and you take a look at the seasonal rewards, there are rewards here for buying 5 buffs, and they're actually, the rewards for doing so are quite nice in terms of getting extra coins and getting extra runes of the unknown. And it's a lot of runes, it's like 1,000 extra runes of the unknown. So you want to budget for Otherworld Battle and save at least enough warrior mementos to get 5 every single season, which is every 60 days. It's really not that difficult. I'm easily able to buy out the Carbonadium and Soul of the Faltine and get 5 buffs, as you can see from the fact that I'm still floating about 7,500 warrior mementos. I ignore the CTP chest, I ignore the Odin's Blessing chest, I ignore pretty much everything else. I don't even really level up my buffs, but I want to talk about the best buffs because this is changing in 2 days, so the buffs are going to disappear. A bunch of them are going to be locked behind time gates, and then we're going to start again from ground zero. So these are the buffs that I'm working with this week. As you can see, I didn't really level them up. I probably should have. If you're really pushing for like top 100, top 50, top 10, you want to level these up to level 6. It does cost you more warrior mementos to level them up for sure, but it does increase the potency of the effects quite a lot. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what I consider to be like the 5 or 6 best buffs, why they're the best, and then we can talk about basically everything else. So right off the top here, the luck one that, oh, you can't actually, it doesn't actually tell you, eh? That's so cringe. Okay, I didn't know that. Let's go back over here. So the luck one is pretty straightforward, but I tend to like it. I don't think it's necessarily, it's not guaranteed to be top 5 worthy, but I think it's worth mentioning just because it should help out a lot of players, which is that it decreases damage received from enemies by 10% and increases damage dealt. And this is a passive effect. It doesn't have an activation rate. It just, is. It just is. And so you can level this up and you can get quite a bit of damage reduction and damage dealt increase. So this is especially good for characters that you feel are like just on the cusp of being tanky enough. You can go ahead and level this up and hit them with quite a lot of buffs, right? But yeah, that one, it depends on who's available that week, and it depends on what your roster looks like. A generically good one that's pretty straightforward. I don't have it on the best character here. I have it on Invisible one right now, but it is the buff effect increase. It's this yellow one with like the little cog wheel inside. Increases active buff effect by 15%. Again, this is a passive one. This one applies to buffs that you apply to yourself, and it basically increases the effect of the buff by a percentage. This one is very good. It's sort of like the buff effect passive that Captain Marvel and Rogue have. It's very, very similar, but you can actually scale it even higher. You can see at level 2, it's already going to go to 20%. And remember, these buffs can all go to level 6. So theoretically, this one should be able to go to 35 or 40% increase active buff effect. That's very, very good. It's almost going to double the effect of some buffs, which is very strong. So yeah, this one is quite nice. It depends on what character you give it to. You have to pay attention. You want to give it to characters that have long-lasting buffs. Some decent options right now would be somebody like, I mean, it wouldn't be bad on Dr. Doom. It wouldn't be bad on Madeline. It wouldn't be bad on, like, if you're running Thanos, for example. I know that when everyone is unbanned, it's quite nice on Wolverine. It's decent on Adam Warlock, I believe, as well. So there are quite a few different options you can use to sort of get the most out of that. And then you see I have 2 of these sort of purple down arrow with a chain. These are kind of debuffs. And so this one, remove purification. There's a 50% chance when you're attacking to just cleanse all debuffs, rip off all the debuffs from your enemy. And as you can see here, when you level it up, it doesn't increase the effect. It increases the chance to trigger. So it goes up from 50 to 60% chance to trigger, which is good. But then it also decreases the cooldown, so you can activate it more frequently. Now, this one is really important. I think this is probably like a top 3 buff, this remove purification. But you've got to put it on the right character. So in this case, I put it on Weapon Hex. Alternatively, I would only really put it on Carnage or Madeline in this team specifically. So I think what you want to do, I think like the more effective thing is to give it to a character that either has immortality with a very high roll on your immortality, like 7 seconds or 6 seconds, if it's an artifact or whatever, or if it's the Berserker effect, it's the full 7 seconds, or a character that revives and is very tanky. Giving it to a glass cannon type character who's going to be alive for a shorter amount of time is not really a good idea. Giving it to a support character, again, not really a good idea. You want to give it to a character who's going to hit a lot, have a lot of hits, which gives them a lot of chances to trigger this, and it's going to be alive for a really long time. So they're tanky and they revive, or they're tanky and they have immortality, so that maybe you can even trigger it twice, right? Because if you trigger this at the 15 seconds, if I level this up, right, 16 seconds, if I level it up again, let's say it's 14 seconds, that's not a very long time. If I can trigger it at the beginning of the fight, I can survive like 10 seconds, then it triggers my immortality, I survive another 7 seconds. Within that time frame, I can trigger this again. So it can be a very powerful effect, but you have to pay attention to give it to like the right characters. You don't want to throw it on like a throwaway character or a support character. The other cleanse, the other sort of down arrow, purple down arrow chain sort of cleanse ability, ignore damage. This one's all right. Ignore damage received by 10% for 3 seconds, and then it has a cooldown. So it just triggers, and then, you know, you don't have to. The good thing about this one is you don't have to get hit. You don't have to, like, nothing has to happen. It's just going to trigger automatically. So if you're noticing, oh no, it is when hit. Sorry. So yeah, 50% chance when hit to ignore damage received. This is really good because it scales really well. So it goes from 10 to 20%. It's going to go up really high in terms of the ignore damage. It's a short duration, but you can see it goes up. So this is one that's going to seem really, really bad at level 1, but it's going to be very, very strong at higher levels. And this is basically, again, sort of like the luck one, where you're just trying to make characters who are just on the cusp of being tanky enough. You're trying to make them really tanky. So Madeline's a pretty good option for this one, which is why I have it on Madeline. Carnage can be one if you're not running Agent Venom this week right now. Doom can be another good option. But yeah, this one is good to sort of shore up defenses, or you can use this to like double down on characters who are already tanky. I'm not sure how effective it is, and I haven't tested how effective it is if you go like way over the limit of 100% damage reduction, because this is damage ignore. It's different. I don't know how it interacts with damage reduction, but let's say you have a character like Thanos, who I think is like 40 or 50% damage reduction, and then if you have like the steal effect and you roll like 60% on that, you're getting like already 100 or 110 damage damage reduction. I don't know how that's going to interact with ignore damage, so you might want to test that on really tanky characters, but my guess is it's for like the lesser tanky characters that it's going to be more effective. And then we have, for me, I'm running this Pierce Ignore Shield. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is helpful at times. Basically, you when hit, you have a chance to create a bubble. It's basically like the regen effect. It creates a percentage of your max HP shield, and that shield cannot be penetrated through, so they have to eat through it before they can get back to your HP. The cooldown is pretty long. I would say, again, this is good for like less tanky characters for sure, but it definitely is something that you'd need to level up to really make the most out of. I honestly don't have the best buffs this week, but in general, I think this week the buffs are not too tremendous. If we go back over to the shop, sometimes the buffs are better than others, to be honest. I don't think the buffs are always exactly the same. I feel like sometimes we see certain buffs that don't always appear. Like there's a bit of a rotation. There's a slightly larger buff list. Taking a look at the list here, there are a bunch that just apply generic effects. Like this one applies a chance to apply blind, which is a chance to miss. This is fear, which is pretty straightforward, a chance to apply fear. But these are all checked by the debuff cleanse one, so you have to be careful where you apply these. I think if you're going to go for something like this, you're better off putting it on, like tactically, putting it on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th character, and then putting that debuff cleanse, right, that remove purification effect, putting that on one of the first 2 characters. So then your goal is basically to cleanse in the early stages of the fight, and then when that 3rd character or that 4th character comes in, depending on how fast your characters get knocked down and killed, they're going to come in and hit them with the fear or the blind. I still don't really like these effects because it's still just 1 second of fear. It's still just 2 seconds of a 55% chance to miss. It's not very good, so I don't particularly like them, but I'm pointing them out. I think the attack decrease is probably better. So this one doesn't apply when you hit. It applies to enemies that hit you. So when you get hit, there's a chance to apply to enemies, decreasing basic attack by 25% for 1.5 seconds. This is a larger chunk. 25% is a bigger number. It's still a short duration, but it also has a pretty short cooldown of 20 seconds. And then you can level that up, right, to level 5 to level 6, and that's going to reduce the cooldown down to like 15 seconds or 14 seconds or whatever. Now, if you pair this with a character that's already very tanky, you can see how you can increase your tankiness in different ways, depending on, you know, if certain buffs haven't worked for you in terms of like luck doesn't really help you, or the other one for damage reduction doesn't really help you. Instead of reducing the damage you take, you can reduce the attack of your enemy. So that's a decent one that can work in some situations. Energy absorption is another one that you can test out that works. It basically it mimics one of the passives that I don't know, I think Captain Marvel used to have. But basically, when you're taking energy damage, you have a chance to absorb it and then increase your all attack. There's not a lot of all attack increase buffs in the game for Otherworld Battle. There's obviously increased attack buffs everywhere else, but specifically for the Otherworld Battle buffs. So this one is nice, again, if you're trying to increase the damage of a character specifically, like, you know, you're trying to make Doom stronger, you're trying to make Madeline a little bit stronger, and then again, the good thing is that this effect seems to be permanent, the way that it's implied, the way that it's written. It doesn't have a cooldown. So once you, like, it's only a 5% chance, which obviously is very low. When you level it up, it's going to get a little bit stronger. But once it increases your attack by 5%, that just stays there statically for the whole fight. It doesn't come back down, right? So if you keep getting hit, if you revive, if you have immortality, that's going to give you more chances, more opportunities to keep getting hit. And if you level this up, it's going to increase the maximum amount, so you can get hit multiple times. You can increase your basic attack by a lot. This does have some, you know, there is a bit of an asterisk here. It does have some sort of proximity to what teams are being used because it's energy damage. So if you have, let's say, you know, in 2 days, the Otherworld Battle season is going to change. If they're going to do, you know, a symbiote theme update and they really want to push people to get null or whatever, and so all of the buffs here are concentrated around characters that don't deal energy damage, they deal physical damage. So it's all about symbiotes. So people are going to use Carnage, they're going to use Null, they're going to use Agent Venom, maybe they're even going to use Venom himself or whatever. All of those characters deal physical damage, not energy damage. There are rare cases where that can happen, and then that energy absorption effect, that energy absorption buff is not as good. This energy absorption one. It's rare though. It's rare because remember, there's always 1 week of Otherworld Battle where everyone is unbanned. And it really doesn't matter how strong the buffs are for a certain class of characters, a certain ability class of characters. It doesn't matter. People are going to go back and they're going to use Sentry. They're going to use Atom. They're going to use Jean and Wolverine, whatever. Wolverine happens to do physical damage, but the rest of those cats, they all do energy damage. So it almost always has at least a week of value, more likely 2 to 3 weeks of value minimum. So it can be good. Besides this, the HP increase, again, can be good. It's just a static effect, so you don't have to worry about it triggering or activating. And again, this scales up to like 25% or 30% or something like that, so you do get quite a bit of HP if you're trying to make a character stronger. If you're using Hulk with a Conquest and you just want to give him a bunch of raw HP, that can certainly work. This one is pretty bad. Again, this is very conditional based on the HP of your character and the HP of another character. This one's very tricky. You have to kind of know the character, the teams of players that you're fighting very closely to know if this is going to work effectively. This one here, again, this relies on enemies using a particular buff. So it's, and again, the effect is just not that good. You can just get better effects from buffs we've already talked about without having that conditional, you know, word there where they have to be using Provoke. Provoke seems cool. When you're below 70%, you taunt. Yeah, it just it doesn't work that well in practice, in reality. I wish the taunt mechanic was stronger in this game. Like, I wish it really like sucked in the enemies, because basically what happens is they target you, but they were already sort of targeting you because AoE on most meta character skills is big enough, and the arena in Otherworld Battle is pretty small. Now, of course, the devs could change this. But if you just queue up one fight here and you take a look, you know, what basically happens is the arena is not that big, A, and then B, the enemies start so close, like the teams start so close together that there's just not enough of a gap, right? There's not enough of a gap to where the provoke ability could work. Now, in some situations, you have like the characters on the top run up and the characters on the bottom run down. But as you saw there, when Doctor Strange killed my Doctor Doom, he immediately ran down. Like they're so fast, they just get sucked down right away, and then all of the fighting ends up getting concentrated in the middle, as you can see here. So there's no need, like the provoke ability is not going to do anything in this case because everyone is already getting AoE'd by everyone exactly the same way. So as much as I really like the provoke effect, I can't recommend it. It's not very good, unfortunately. I think the devs should work on it and tweak the the positioning and stuff, because I think it's a really cool effect. I really like it, and it really makes it feel more like tactical. But at the current in the current stage of the game or whatever, it doesn't really do much. The rest of the buffs here, skill cooldown increase. This is just not very good. Again, you need to cleanse first for this to really work. This can be good if a particular set of characters is dominating for that week. Like if it's if teams are fielding Jean, Ghost Rider, Madeline, like a bunch of elemental damage characters, sure, this can work. This has obviously better results when you compare it with someone who already has really high resistances, like Jean or Thanos. You gotta be careful because some characters, like for example symbiotes, all have like negative fire resist. I think you got to be careful because it's kind of pointless, right? It really, resists don't really matter that much for the first like 0 to 50%. You're not gonna notice a damage reduction. When you can go to 50 and up, then you're gonna really start to notice some big buffs. So you're gonna have to buy this one, and then you're also gonna have to level it up at least to like level 4 or 5, if not all the way to level 6, in order for it to be good. And then yeah, that's basically it. Those are all the buffs. I'm pretty sure there are other buffs. Like I'm pretty sure I've seen a couple of other buffs. So if you have individual questions about buffs that you haven't seen covered in this video, hit me up in the comments, or hit me up on Discord or something like that. But yeah, those are all the buffs for Otherworld Battle. Those are the buffs that I like. And believe it or not, using different buffs and leveling them up can actually make a difference. So again, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're on the cusp of top 50, top 100, whatever, and you're trying to push and you're struggling, I don't think it's try this before you invest in a new tier 4, because this is a lot cheaper, although it only lasts you for 60 days. It's a lot cheaper. But yeah, in general, you should, if you are going to use buffs and level them up, you should level them up at the beginning of the season so that you get the most value out of them. I would say if there's 30 days or less left on the Otherworld Battle season, unless you're having a blast with it, it's probably a bad investment to level up the buffs, because once it ends, it resets and you're back to square one. Anyways, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.